Free reference material you should read. What does accepted for value mean? Millions of people use the phrase, accepted for value, every day without knowing what it means and why it is so powerful. You have the right to make personal choices that affect your commercial affairs. You can be in control, or you can be controlled. Acceptance for value is one means of being in control. This is a free publication offered to those who seek the truth by the American Connection. Page 2 of the copyrighted copyright 2007 by the American Connection. All rights are reserved, except the contents of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, and transcribed in any form or by any means without express permission, but may not be sold. The author of this book does not give legal advice. Remedies are available if you know where to look for them. The purpose of this book is to reveal and compile the sources of some of these remedies that can be found in millions of pages of case law, statutes, codes, laws, rules, and regulations. This book is intended to decrease the time it takes to discover the components of your remedies and their application. It is the responsibility of the readers to understand their remedies, to seek assistance if necessary, and to apply proper and complete concepts to reach a successful conclusion to a dispute. This book does not exhaust the information that might be needed to successfully settle a dispute. Page 3 of the Table of Contents. Introduction. Value, UCC 1-201. Constitutional Oaths. Acceptance. Offer and acceptance and counteroffer. Acceptance for value equals taken for value. Negotiability. Without recourse. Issued or transferred for value, UCC 3-303. Interest in property. Settlement. A4V Recap. 1-6-1618-1821. 2527-2948-4949. Page IV of the other writings from the American Connection on related topics that can be found at www.lulu.com. Do a search by title or by authority, blank. Books. America, national or federal. 97 pages. Each state, in ratifying the Constitution, is considered a sovereign body, independent of all others, and only to be bound by its own voluntary act. In this relation, the new Constitution will, if established, be a federal and not a national constitution. The Federalist, No. 39, James Madison. In Search of Liberty 112 pages. Liberty, sir, is the primary object. The battles of the Revolution were fought, not to make a great and mighty empire, but for liberty. Patrick Henry. Booklets. Superior Law, Higher Law, My Law Free. You have rights antecedent to all earthly governments, rights that cannot be repealed or restrained by human laws, rights derived from the great legislator of the universe. John Adams. Introduction to Corporate Political Societies. Free. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Ephesians 6:10-12. Introduction to Law. Merchant. Free. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty with which Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Galatians 5:1. Society of slaves and freedmen. Free. If men, through fear, fraud, or mistake should in terms renounce or give up any natural right, the eternal law of reason and the grand end of society would absolutely vacate such renunciation. The right to freedom being a gift of Almighty God, it is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. Samuel Adams 1772. Page V of the Sovereignty. Free. Even in almost every nation, which has been denominated free, the state has assumed a supercilious preeminence above the people who have formed it. Hence, the haughty notions of state independence, state sovereignty, and state supremacy. Justice Wilson, Chisholm v. Georgia, 2 Dall. U.S. 419, 458, 1792. The legal system for sovereign rulers free. The Lord shall judge the people with equity. Psalms 98, 9. The negative side of positive law free. Therefore, one must be wise and attentive, since there are those among us who make kings and set up princes outside his law. Hosea 8, 4. Liberty free. Now the Lord is that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. 2 Corinthians 3:17. When there is no money free, for thus saith the Lord, ye have sold yourselves for nothing, and ye shall be redeemed without money. Isaiah 52, 3. The natural order of things free. Owe no one anything, except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. Romans 13, 8. Resident minister free. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. Leviticus 25, 45. Page V of thee. Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence, till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. Matthew 5:25-26. Page 1 of 50. What does accepted for value mean? Accepted for value A4V is at the foundation of remedies available for commercial demands made by the United States, so many people have attempted to use it to close accounts in the United States. Even so, no one has had a good explanation of what A4V means. Here is an attempt to clarify. Introduction. The Uniform Commercial Code in Article 3 that deals with negotiable instruments is one source of explanation. Article 8 deals with investment securities, and Article 9 deals with secured transactions. In addition to opinions written by judges to shed light on our remedies, all three of these articles hold a key to understanding commercial setoff. The UCC had an overhaul in 2000, but the major principles remain the same. The changes appear to be to the sections that deal with secured transactions Article 9 and some with investment securities Article 8, but negotiable instruments are what lead to those securities. The phrase, accepted for value, has little coverage in the code books or in court opinions. A better understanding of the commercial terms, acceptance, and value, and how they relate to instruments in general would be a good place to start. Acceptance 1. An agreement, either by express act or by implication from conduct, to the terms of an offer so that a binding contract is formed. If an acceptance modifies the terms or adds new ones, it generally operates as a counteroffer. Black's 7th accept. To receive with approval or satisfaction, to receive with intent to retain. Black's 4th acceptance. The taking and receiving of anything in good part, and as it were a tacit agreement to a preceding act, which might have been defeated or avoided if such acceptance had not been made. Black's 4th. A naked acceptance waives remedies that are available by waiving defects in the instrument agreement that is being offered and accepted. Receiving an instrument is an acceptance and a taking. Retention is the basis for a binding contract if there is a preceding act like a pledge to the United States. Altering the terms of the instrument and returning it operates as a counteroffer. UCC 1-201. General Definitions 44. Value. Accept is otherwise provided with respect to negotiable instruments and bank collections sections 3-303. 4-210 and 4-211. A person gives value for rights if he acquires them. In return for a binding commitment to extend credit or for the extension of immediately available credit whether or not drawn upon and whether or not a chargeback is provided for in the event of difficulties in collection, or b. as security for or in total or partial satisfaction of a pre-existing claim, or c. by accepting delivery pursuant to a pre-existing contract for purchase, or page 2 of 50. D. Generally, in return for any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. UCC 1-201 44 generally says that a person gives value. He gives value to get rights. If one person is giving value, another person is asked to give rights in exchange. Both giving value and giving rights meet the element of consideration. The question has to be, what constitutes value? In today's commercial system where ownership is not the prime focus, interest rights in things takes the place of ownership as the goal. A security interest constitutes a right to seize control of a pledged thing if the one giving the security interest fails to perform as agreed. The one giving a security interest retains possession of the thing that secures the right of another party to seize possession of the thing that backs the security interest that was given. The one receiving a security interest becomes a secured party, especially if the instrument establishing the security interest is registered. He has rights, which are remedies and defenses that he can use to enforce an agreement if the other party fails to perform as agreed. UCC 1-201. General Definitions 36. Rights includes remedies. A remedy is a commercial right for those who acquire that right through an instrument. In corporate United States, there must be a written record of everything. Nothing is supposed to be assumed or presumed, but that does not mean assumptions and presumptions are not used every day to acquire rights and enforce them. If the right that is being enforced is a security interest in a tangible or intangible thing, it usually comes from an instrument that is actually supported by the thing. This is usually, but not always, a pledge or a promise to relinquish possession of a thing if there is a breach of an agreement. Because enforcement of a contract based on an implied promise is weak, an instrument demanding performance on it is an offer to initiate a new contract based on an old antecedent and may be implied or unenforceable contact. If an instrument is based on an intentional written promise to perform and an intentional pledge to relinquish property, it does not have to be issued for value. It is just issued, and the original contract with the offerer's right to the pledged property is the consideration that supports the demand. A copy of the written promise and pledge can be attached to the instrument, or the instrument can just refer to the contract by its title, number, or date, etc. The issuer of the instrument demanding performance supported by a written promise has defenses if the debtor files a complaint against the issuer for making the demand. The issuer can produce the antecedent contract that contains the intentional promise to perform and the intentional pledge to use tangible or intangible property to secure that performance. If the debtor is aware that he had previously signed a promise and pledged his right to a thing to guarantee his performance, he would not have to see the contract. The demand instrument is issued to get performance already promised, or in the alternative to get the thing already pledged. In some cases, there is no pledge to support an instrument, so it must be issued and transferred for value with implied consideration. There is no debtor. The issuer, page 3 of 50, does not have a written instrument to back his demand instrument. If he decides to issue the demand instrument in spite of his lack of authority, he is risking liability on the instrument. If the transferee, the one who the issuer directs the demand to, calls the issuer's bluff, the issuer could be made to pay the transferee. The issuer, transferor, has no defenses. He has no antecedent contract to attach as consideration for the demand he is sending to the transferee. If the issuer has no written pledge but still decides to issue a demand, the demand instrument must be issued for value, because there is no evidence of pledge to attach to it. There is no written antecedent contract obligation that requires the transferee to perform, but he still has to do something with the demand. The transferee is the one who receives the instrument by mail, by process server, or by warrant. The transferee is a target. The issuer is shooting the instrument at the target, hoping the target will just take the shot and agree to become liable on the new offer. The issuer is bluffing. If the transferee recognizes the demand instrument as a bluff, he can call the issuer on the bluff and require the issuer to pay. The transferee actually gains a security interest in the instrument if he recognizes it. If the instrument is issued and transferred for value with implied consideration, the transferee acquires a security interest or other lien on the instrument if it was not obtained by judicial proceeding. See UCC 3 to 303 below. If you properly endorse an instrument issued and transferred for value, you acquire a right to enforce the instrument against the issuer. You become the creditor by returning it to the issuer, who becomes the debtor. By accepting the instrument and offer for value, you are altering the terms of the offer, and it becomes a counteroffer. Acceptance. If an acceptance modifies the terms or adds new ones, it generally operates as a counteroffer. Black 7th. The right to be the creditor is what you get when you A4V an instrument that is issued and transferred for value, like a tax bill, penal action, indictment, or speeding ticket. These issues are all based on violations of statutes. Dishonor has value in the public. Violation of statutes has value in the public. The violation of the statute is the presumed basis consideration for issuing the instrument, but if you have not promised to perform under those statutes, you are not obligated, and the issuer has no way of supporting his demand instrument. It is issued without consideration. It is issued based on a presumption that every U.S. citizen has pledged allegiance to the United States and to its private laws, statutes. It is a bluff. The river card has already been turned. You have the winning hand. You can call the issuer's bluff. You can check. You can raise. You can fold. It is your choice. You have the button. The commercial system of the United States is based on the law merchant. That law is not neutral, it is not set up to be fair. It is set up to facilitate collection for creditors, especially foreign creditors. It deals with debtors and creditors, even when there is no debtor-creditor relationship. The only thing that has to be determined in most situations is, who is the debtor and who is the creditor. Once that is page 4 of 50, determined, additional facts are usually irrelevant and immaterial. In the United States, every man is deemed to be a U.S. citizen, and every U.S. citizen is deemed to a debtor. A4V is one way of establishing that you are a creditor and not a debtor. If you are going to use the law merchant to settle disputes with the United States, a firm understanding of the law merchant is necessary. If you have commercial rights, the trier of facts in a commercial dispute will proceed cautiously to avoid denying you commercial due process. Commercial due process is not much more than time and opportunity to complete an administrative remedy and produce a counterclaim. If you don't know what your administrative remedies are, you probably don't have any commercial rights to exercise. As one who represents a person in the United States, i.e., a U.S. citizen, you have due process rights through the sovereign statutes. As a man in the several states, you have due process rights through your Creator's natural order of things. Properly applied, commercial remedies incorporate the natural order of things. You can choose to use a sovereign statutes or commercial remedies, but they should not be used simultaneously. They are like oil and water. They do not mix. If you are going to use commercial remedies, injection of statutory rights will kill your commercial due process remedies. The terms of the offer and acceptance make the law that will be enforced. Even though you might choose to use commercial remedies, you still need to use the person you represent in the public to access the commercial remedies. They have been statutized in state law. You can use them, but you cannot cite the source. The statutes use the natural order of things as the basis for their code sections, and then incorporate the private policy code sections into the same set of published statutes. If you use the site UCC ____ or USC section ________, you have reverted back to being a U.S. citizen taking a benefit from the statutes. If you demonstrate the principle in the code section without citing it, you maintain your separation. The person you represent in the public acquires the commercial rights, but you interject your rights through the natural order of things, and maintain your unalienable rights. You get to use the person, instead of it using you. A person can acquire commercial rights through several means. According to the definition of value above, he can acquire them. A. In return for credit, B. As security, C. Through a delivery pursuant to a contract, or D. In return for any consideration. Each of subsections A through D deals with a different scenario. The last one, D, is a general catch-all that covers anything that might not have been addressed by the first three. This definition is one of the most confusing in the Commercial Code, and is one of the most important to understand. A right is defined as a remedy. Debtors' remedies often include defenses against foreclosure on the express or implied terms of an express or implied agreement for which security was given. Defenses are often given to debtors as